All right, hello everybody. We are doing lesson 112 today, reducing fractions. So if you have your book and you want to open up with us, you're welcome to. It's page 780. We are going to be talking about reducing fractions or simplifying fractions. Those mean the same thing. If you reduce a fraction, it means you're making it the numbers smaller. When we talk about reducing fractions or simplifying fractions, we are not actually making the fraction itself smaller, we're just making the number smaller. So let's look at this as an example. So 4/6 is the same thing as 2/3, but you see how 2 and 3 are smaller numbers than 4 and 6. So when I say it makes it smaller, I don't actually mean the size is smaller, just we're reducing the numbers. We're making the numbers smaller, okay? We are simplifying it. We're making it easier, okay? If you saw a number that was like 222 over 444, you'd be like, whoa, that is a crazy big fraction. But if I said that's the same thing as 1/2, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know what 1/2 is, right? So this is a crazy huge big fraction. This is the same fraction reduced or simplified. So that is what we are doing today, okay? We are going to scroll down and we are going to do a few of these examples, a few of these practices. The one thing that you probably want to remember from today is what you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Okay, I'm going to go through it 2 different ways and hopefully you'll be able to understand at least one or both of the ways. Okay, so when we are reducing or simplifying each fraction, we are going to look, let's look at A right here. We are going to look at the top number and the bottom number and ask ourselves a question. The question we are going to ask is, what can we divide the top number by and the bottom number by? Okay, the top number we can divide by 3, right? 6 divided by 3 is 2. But the bottom number, 8, we can't do 8 divided by 3. We would get a remainder and we can't do remainders, okay? So what's another number we could divide the top and the bottom by? We could divide the top number by 2, 6 divided by 2, and we could divide the bottom number by 2 as well. So that's what this down here, this is another way. What I say, what you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. If you divide the top by 2, you got to divide the bottom by 2. The book shows it like this. So another way to think about it, you are dividing it by 1 because 2 over 2 is the same thing as 1. And so you're just making it smaller. You have to figure out what that 1 equals. Is it 2 over 2? Is it 3 over 3? Is it 4 over 4? Whatever that is, but really that's what you are doing. You are dividing it by 1. Okay, so we are just for this, the purpose of this video, we are just going to say, we're going to figure out what we have to divide by and what we do to the top, we're going to do to the bottom. I think it's easier to look at it that way. If you want to read the book and figure out that other way, you're welcome to. It will do the same thing for you. Okay, so what we do to the top, we've got to do to the bottom. So I'm going to write it a little bit bigger over here. So we are dividing the top by 2, and then we are dividing the bottom. Whoops, that's not a division sign. The bottom by 2. What we do to the top, we got to do to the bottom. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's where we get this number, 3/4. See, in our example right here, 6/8 is that much pizza, and 3/4 is that much pizza. You see how it's the same thing? So we're not changing the fraction, we're just reducing it or simplifying it. Okay, we're going to do 2 more examples. Okay, remember, we need to look. The first step, we're going to do this one right here. And you can't see the answer unless you have your book and it's on the next page. So let's walk through this one together. The first thing we need to do is ask ourselves the question, what can we divide the top number and the bottom number by without getting any remainders? We don't want any remainders. And you're always going to be right. You can always divide it by 1, but that's not going to reduce the fraction or simplify the fraction. So we're not going to do 1. We're never going to divide by 1. Okay? So what can we divide the top number and the bottom number by without getting any remainders? We can divide the top by 3. We can divide the bottom by 3, right? Divided by 3, divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So my answer is 1/2. Whoops, don't know why that went diagonal. Okay, so 1/2 or 1/2. My answer is 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to go through those steps one more time with you. First step, figure out what we can divide the top and the bottom number by. Then divide the top number and the bottom number by that same number. And then you're going to, if your division sign's right here or your fraction bar is right here, your fraction bar is going to be right there. And you're going to do your equation and put it on top, do the bottom equation, and then put that on the bottom. Okay, let's do one. We'll probably actually do 2 more because there's one thing that I do need to tell you. Well, let's do 6/7 first. 6/7. Can we divide the top and the bottom number by anything? That's our question. The first thing we need to do, what can we divide it by? Well, we can't divide it by 6 because you can't divide 7 by 6. You can't divide it by 5. You can't divide it by 4. You can't divide it by 3. So this example, C, is actually already reduced. This is as simplified as it can get. So this is just, that is just your answer. 6/7. Okay? If you cannot divide it by anything, then that's what your answer is. 6/7. You can't divide 6 and 7 by the same number. Okay? So you're not going to be able to simplify or reduce that fraction anymore. Okay? Let's do another example. An example that I want to do, let's do 6/12. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, 6/12. We are going to figure out what we can divide the top number and the bottom number by. We're trying to simplify this. I'm gonna do it 2 different ways, so I want you to watch me, okay? If you said you can divide both of these numbers by 2, that would be correct. I can divide that number by 2, I can divide that number by 2, right? 6 divided by 2 is 3, put my fraction bar there. 12 divided by 2 is 6. But guess what? We can still divide 3 and 6 by another number. So it's not in its simplest form because we can still divide this number, 3/6, we can divide each of those by 3. So 3 divided by 3 equals 1. 6 divided by 3 equals 2. So our answer is actually 1/2. That is what 6/12, this number in its simplest form, is actually that number. Okay? Now, I'm going to come to the other side. I know I've got a lot going on. I just want to show you another way that we could have done this problem. 6/12. If you looked at that and said, oh, well, 6 times 2 is 12, so that means we can divide both numbers by 6. Divide by 6, divide by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Then you would have ended up with 1/2 the first time you did it. Okay? So one of these ways is not more correct than the other one. The second way, this way over here, is faster because you only have to do it one time. But did we end up with the same answer both times? Yeah. So it doesn't actually matter which way you do it, but just know, before you say, this is my final answer, I want you to check it one more time and say, before I say 3/6 is the answer, is there anything else that I can divide both of those numbers by? And then you would realize, oh yeah, there is. I can divide both of those by 3. And then you would know, okay, I'm going to divide it by 3 again, and now this is in its simplest form. Okay, I hope that was helpful. On your homework, you're going to have a lot of problems about reducing fractions or putting a fraction in its reduced form. Another way that you would say that would be in its simplest form, or to simplify a fraction. On your homework, you're also going to have a couple questions about the tenths place and the hundredths place. So I'm just going to talk to you about that for about 1 minute, and then I will let you go. So we're going to go over to math practice, and we'll just practice a couple of these problems. So I'm going to get this number. Well, got my shirt that's making dots everywhere. All right. 367 decimal 128. All right. We've talked about this before. We need to remember the difference between the hundreds place. This is the hundreds place. And this is the hundredths place. So the difference is that TH. Hundreds and hundredths. Okay? So I'm spelling it out so you can see the difference. Okay? So on your homework, there's going to be a question that will say something like, what digit is in the hundredths place? What digit is in the hundredths place? It would be this. That's the hundredths. Remember, this is the tenths. This is the thousandths. If you don't know these, I would write these down, okay? This is our ones place and our tens place. If you need to freeze this, pause the video so that you can take a look at, or so you can write all this down: hundreds, tens, ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Okay, you need to know those. Remember, there is no such thing as the oneths place. That's not a thing. It doesn't exist. Okay, so please, please, please make sure you know these things. It will help you on your homework today, and also on your homework on Thursday, and also on the test on Friday. So this is definitely something important, something that you need to know. Okay, so take a pause right here, pause the video, write all this down if you don't know it. Remember, the hundredths place and the tenths place are on the other side of the decimal. Okay, the THs, all of these TH ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, that's on this side of the decimal. That will help you to remember it. Okay, good luck on your homework. You only have 10 questions today, and most of them are reducing fractions, and then there are 3 about tenths and hundredths place. So good luck. You guys will do great, and I will talk to you tomorrow.